All right, here we go. All right, welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Bar. I am your host, Devon Grogans, here with co-host Tommy John, and we got a good one lined up for you today. Today, we're going to talk about, let us know, Tommy.
We're going to talk about the post-show rebound, some might call it, post-show disasters. We're going to talk about everything, what to avoid, what your body wants, what your mind wants, everything like that. So I think it's going to be a ton of fun.
Definitely. Well, let's jump in. I'll start off with a quick story because I'm sure anybody that has competed has done something similar or close to, probably not to the degree that I did. But when I did my first show, I had no plans on competing again. I figured I would be one and done and just hang it up. So clearly that didn't happen. 8, 9 years and now 5 days out from Pittsburgh for my pro card. Clearly not the case. But after my first show, I will not forget. I had an entire bag full of Pop Tarts and cookies, candies, and anything else you could think of that I wanted and had been stashing to eat the entire prep, I ate. And as soon as I found out that, because my very first show I did novice, that there's no overall. So I got second and I went out and did my thing for finals, just did my little, turn, boom, walked off stage, got my trophy. It was game on. And all of that stuff was down the hatch. I will never forget, we were about 2 hours from where we live. My wife was driving. And as we're driving, I'm like, oh, pull over, Carl's Jr. And I got Carl's Jr. And across the street was Popeyes. And I ran over to Popeyes and got a couple biscuits. And when everything was said and done, the next day, I think I had, pancakes and waffles. I was up 35 pounds, horrible edema. I had no ankle, I just had one big leg from the butt down was just one big leg. And I remember people saying, oh, it's just water weight, get on, make sure you're keeping your fluids high, get your cardio in, it'll come off. What they didn't know was I probably consumed about 5,000 calories, if not more, worth of shit. And it's water weight when you consume the correct foods and you get a little bit of film, not when your ankle looks like the top of your thigh. And it hurt. I could push it in and it would slowly come back out. You could still see my fingerprint. And so that's really what we want to avoid. And that's, I think, a lot of what we're going to talk about today. Like, what is it that your body is truly craving versus what you think your mind is telling you want?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, my first show was similar. It was probably almost identical to the weight gain. I think that first few days, that weekend, I probably put on 40 pounds. Um, here's how you know. Here's how you know you have real edema: when your Crocs don't fit.
Yeah.
If you can't fit your foot in your Croc, it's a bad day for you.
When you
Um,
pull your foot out of your crock and it goes,
yes, and think about that. Your heart has to pull that water
mm-hmm,
somehow out of those lower extremities. Um, man, that's a lot of stress on your heart, and in the same process, it's a lot of stress on your kidneys. Your blood pressure has to be through the roof. There's no way around it. Um, you're doing serious damage to your health beyond what bodybuilding already comes with already. That we
mm-hmm.
do take risk, because we enjoy bodybuilding, so we signed up for it. And this isn't an episode about safety of bodybuilding. When you when you're passionate about something, you're willing to take risk, even if you know that there are safety things that get thrown out the window when you're deep in prep. We all sign up for that. We know that. But when you're adding to that stuff with reckless food, like reckless consumption of food, I mean, now all that stuff that we may or may not take leading into the show, all that's extremely minor compared to what we're doing in 2 days to our body with this type of food. So I just think there's a different way to do it, and that's what we're here to talk about today. Um, so I did actually have some questions. Do you want to start with questions?
Um,
The
let's
first,
end with we'll finish with some questions. I want to
perfect.
jump into what your body is actually craving because after the show, right, we have leptin, we have ghrelin.
Hmm.
One is telling us, that we're hungry. And usually it's any and everything in sight. What your body is actually craving is nutrients because we've
That's it.
deprived it, because we've pulled water to some degree, whether it's a little bit or whether it's a lot. Water has been pulled from the body.
Hmm.
And the best thing you can do is electrolytes. And I know with my clients, the first thing I tell them to do is get 16 to 24 ounces of either like a Gatorade G2 or coconut water is an amazing one, but
Yeah.
sip on it. Don't
Yep.
pound it
Don't
because your
slam it.
body's, yeah, sip on it before you get a large meal in. So get that in right after you come off stage. You should have it with you backstage, and you're drinking that from the point that you're off stage to the point that you're back to the hotel getting ready
Hmm.
to shower. If you're
Hmm.
going to eat anything, and it's funny because my last show, I told my wife in between shows, I'm like, can you swing by a store and get me an apple? Like I
Yeah.
crave just an apple. And
Yep.
um I had a coconut water and an apple, and that blunted a lot of those cravings right off the bat
Yep.
until we got food in. So making sure that you're actually fueling your body with micronutrients
Hmm.
rather than just leading that dopamine response that your body is telling you that it wants, because that's really what the food is. Those highly, highly caloric foods are just giving you the dopamine that your body is not having because you're so depleted. And it's
Yeah.
more of a mental satisfaction than it is a nutrition satisfaction. Because most of the time, and I'm sure you went through it, I know I went through it, you're eating all this food, and at the moment you feel great. Then as soon as you look at the wrappers and everything else, you're like, oh my God, what did I do? Once
Yes.
that dopamine finally comes down, you're like, I don't feel good. I probably should not have done that. And you're looking at the remnants of everything. Like
Yeah.
that's not where you want to be. So don't fuel the dopamine, fuel the micros.
Yeah, I completely agree. My approach is very similar. I do start with hydration first.
Hmm.
Um, when I get off, this is after finals. This is when the show is done. You either
Right.
won your trophy or you didn't. Um, so what I do, I instantly start with just clean water,
Yep.
you know, and then I'll start adding in some electrolytes, and I will consume nothing but electrolytes and fluids for the first hour post show.
Yep. I'm the same. That's what I tell all my athletes too. Within the first
Yep.
hour to an hour and a half, nothing but fluids. If you are going to eat, it needs to be something like fruit.
Yes.
Um,
Or your normal bodybuilding meal.
yes.
I try to do that. So I'll get the fluids in for about an hour. I normally have a meal or two with me left over from all the stuff I brought. So
Hmm.
I'll eat one of the meals that I have in my cooler, and that starts to fill you up, starts to satiate you, things like that. Then what do we do next, Devon? After that, we want to go out to dinner with our wife, right? And our
Exactly.
friends and our fellow competitors. Maybe our coach is there with us, and we want to go out to dinner with our coach. Um, so that's the next plan. So, what do we do when we go out to dinner? What do you do?
Yeah. So I typically what I do and what I have my clients do is I say have have a meal. Um, let that be kind of whatever you want within reason, a meal. If you want a dessert, have a dessert. And after that, shut it down. We're not eating all night. Have one meal, enjoy
Yeah.
that. Have your dessert, enjoy that. And then what I typically tell them is the next morning, if you'd like, have one more meal, but then back on the plan after that, or start the day on the plan and
Okay.
incorporate a meal of choice throughout the day.
Yeah.
Um, I find that you will rebound so much better when you stick to the plan for at least the next 3 to 5 days, to be
Hmm.
able to incorporate more of those freedom foods at
Hmm.
the end of the next week than at the
Hmm.
beginning of that week. Your body is so absorbent at that point that it
Yes.
wants to uptake nutritious food. So if you give it junk out of the gate, then we're kind of shooting ourselves in the foot to set ourselves up for success down the road. So if you can hold off for 3 to 5 days, then at the end of the week, we can add a load. And maybe you've only been loading on 2 meals, but I can promise you that if you can hold off for those 3 to 5 days, at the end of the week,
Yeah.
we can load you with, 3 to 5, even 2 days worth of meals, and then back to your plan. And you're going to get such a better response doing that than you
Yeah.
will just shoveling food in your face for 2 to 3 days after the show. That's my typical approach.
Yeah, mine's very similar. So fluid first, electrolytes, bodybuilding meal, go out to dinner with your family, friends, coach, whatever it is, um, and then more fluid, right? More
Hmm.
fluid on the drive home or whatever. Um, when I get home, I'll normally have something else, and it's normally something boring like protein yogurt with peanut butter in there.
Yeah,
And
a fun food that you might not have had on prep, but it's still not super high calorically dense and still very
yeah,
nutritious.
or it's one of those foods that you were using to load
Yeah.
on prep. So,
Hmm.
for example, like this year, um, I did rice, fruit, a little bit of chicken, and some peanut butter, and I
Yep.
mixed it all together with hot sauce. It sounds disgusting, but I loved it.
Yeah,
So,
that
like,
was me, but beef and honey added in.
yeah, yeah, it's perfect. So when I got home, I would just do another thing like that. Next morning, I'm 100% going to breakfast, and
Hmm.
I'm normally pushing it off. I'll fast the first little bit of the morning, and I'm
Maybe
pushing
a shake.
fluids. Yeah, maybe a protein shake. And I'm still pushing fluids. I'm getting the water first, and then I'm adding the electrolytes. And, I try to push that first meal off. I mean, I would really try to fast 12 to 14 hours into that next day.
Hmm.
And because you know you're about to kill breakfast, you're going to eat a huge meal. And then that, let's call it Sunday because most shows are on Saturday, right? For me at least. So
Yeah.
Sunday, I normally only have 3 meals.
Yep.
So I'll
I'm the same.
fast most of the morning. I have a big breakfast with my wife. We love to go out for breakfast. It's one of our favorite
Yep.
things.
Same with us.
Yeah, I know you share that too. It's just the best type of food. I don't care what anyone says. So um, then that evening we'll do like some type of lunch, whether we go grab a sub sandwich from Jersey Mike's or we make sandwiches at home, have some chips, whatever. Still pushing water, still pushing water. That night, I try to make that night to go out to dinner with my family that didn't come to the show or that they've invited me to dinner for several weeks and I've been in prep
Hmm.
and I'm like, okay, finally I can go out to dinner with these guys. They've been asking me. So now I'm rekindling relationships,
Very important.
breaking bread together, right? And I'll eat, we'll go to a steakhouse or something like that and I'll eat pretty sensible. Um, And then that following week, I'm back on plan. That Monday morning, I'm back on plan. If cardio's still in, I'm waking up and I'm doing my cardio. If
Yep.
it's not cardio, I'm waking up and I'm doing some sort of walk, right? Some sort of
Yep.
gratitude
Yep.
walk and
Get movement in.
get moving right away. Fluid has to still be flowing
Hmm.
because as soon as you drop that and you start replacing it with food, man, whenever you replace fluid with food, that's where the edema comes on.
Yep.
All this extra sodium, all these extra refined carbs that, you're just not ready for. Your body's too sensitive at that point.
Hmm.
Um, and then, I stay, I stay on plan until that following Sunday. And then I start going back to my normal loading, right? 2, maybe 3 meals, depending on where I was. Let's call it 4 or 5 weeks out from the show. And then sooner or later, your clean food starts going up anyways, too. So I start pushing the clean food,
Yep.
and you might go right back to the diet that you started prep at. So you go back to those macros that you were at the start of prep, and like you could even have your old diet on a piece of paper and be like,
Hmm.
okay, here we go. And sometimes that's double the carbs from where you are,
Oh yeah.
and but it's good food, right? It's our clean bodybuilding food, whatever you want to call it. We're back on plan. Um, and we're just starting that prep diet from the start again. That's normally how I rebound. Is I just go back to where I started prep, and those calories are normally high enough to where you're going to start growing again right away. Your body's so sensitive.
Oh yeah. Well, let me ask you this, because I'm very similar in that. I'm a firm believer in just kind of reversing back into different points of the prep. Usually with my clients, it'll be, hey, let's start about 2 weeks prior to peak week. And then, like you
Yes.
said, just work our way back up to, depending on how things are adjusting, work our way
Hmm.
back up to our starting point,
Yeah.
which, to your point, takes you very, very much so out of a deficit and
Hmm.
into a good surplus with good food. What is your take on cardio? Are you somebody that pulls it out completely? Do you taper it back? If so, how do you taper that? What
I
does that
cut
look
it.
like?
I normally cut it in half.
That, gosh, we are so
Yeah.
similar. I do
Yeah.
the same. I tell my
Okay.
athletes, if you were doing 60 minutes, I want
Yeah.
you at 30 for at least a week. We'll
Yeah.
assess. And then from 30, we'll usually drop it down to about 20 or just pull a couple of days out. If they were doing 6 days at 30, then from that point we might drop it down to 4 days at 20. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah.
That's the reason that's so perfect, Devon, is because now you don't have to add food
Hmm.
because you change the caloric balance by changing the activity. And this is often forgotten. We have lots of variables that we have lots of cards we can play. That's what John Meadows used to call it, right? Playing your
Hmm.
cards at the right time. Um, Now we can go back to that 2 4 week out diet, but we cut cardio in half. Now that diet is more effective in a way because your output is now lower, right? So we just created a surplus by pulling back activity. Now we create an environment where we can recover better. And we'll touch on training in a minute too, what we do about training. Um, but now we're pulling back that stress, and we're able to create somewhat of a surplus without actually adding food. This does a
Yep.
couple things. One, you don't have to slam all this food all of a sudden, and your digestion is very happy, because if you just start piling in food, even if it's clean food, I mean, your digestive system is not ready for that.
Nope.
It's been processing these tiny little meals every 2 hours, right? And now you want to put these meals that you started prep in. So there is like a couple weeks, like you said, where you need to build it back up, and tapering back cardio is part of that rebuild. So I think that's a really really good point. I'm glad you made that. Um, let's talk about now that we're kind of on that topic. Let's talk about what you do with training, or what
Yeah.
you recommend your clients do.
So, first thing I tell them is if you want to go into the gym, the only thing you're doing is cardio and some light pump work, similar to what you would do for peak week.
Yep.
I know Skip calls it, I call it, we call them those fluff workouts. Just go
Yeah.
in, do the fun things that you enjoy doing. We're not doing super heavy compounds. We're not trying to break any PRs. Go in, do some lat pull downs, some shoulder raises, some things that are just light and easy, get you in and out, move some blood, push some of that glycogen through your system. And preferably the first 3 to 4 days, I tell them, stay the hell out of the gym. Like, you really don't need to be in the gym. Get up and go on a
Yeah.
walk, go enjoy
Hmm.
outside, find other activities to do, but just move a little bit.
Yeah.
Stay out of the gym unless you absolutely feel like you have to be in there for about 3 to 4 days. And then the start of that next week, then we start getting into, and I'm not one to really work off percentages when it comes to
Yeah.
bodybuilding, but
No.
about 60 to 70%
Sure.
of what you would be. And then by week 3, now we're starting to push it. Now we're starting to up our limit, up our load. That food is really starting to absorb within our body. Our overall energy expenditure is coming down, the body is rested, it's not
Mhm.
so fatigued, you're in less likely of a position to hurt yourself. Now we can start pushing at about the 2.5, 3 week mark is how I like to kind of do things.
Okay, yeah, I'm very similar. I'll definitely take the weekend off. The first week back in the gym, here's a trick that I do. I don't bring headphones because you train different if you're going into a
Hmm.
public gym without headphones.
Oh
It's
yes.
just for me, it's not always there. So I leave my headphones at home purposefully, and I will actually start to be a little social in the gym, which
Yeah.
I'm not. I'm
Same.
not. When I don't talk until my workout's over.
Hmm.
You know, I'll wave, I'll smile. I'm not rude to anyone. I'm never going to be that guy. Um, but I will be more social, you know, with the guys that throughout the year we like to chat when the workout is done. Now, since they don't always care, I'll chat in between their sets and stuff. I'll even work in with them. I'll
Yep.
start making new friends. You know, all this. My wife makes fun of me because she says I have all these friends at the gym. Um, and that's part of the reason because after a show, um, you know, I'll do some pump stuff and I'll chat with people and um, really just, I mean, train like some people train all the time, I guess, right?
Right.
So that's week one. Um, week two, everything is one working set for me. So and sometimes if I'm training 5 days a week, all prep, sometimes I'll pull back as far as 3 days a week.
See, and that's
And
what I typically do. I'll go in
mhm,
3 days. I'll hit like a push pull leg or an upper lower
perfect.
upper,
Yep.
maybe three full bodies where I'm just hitting a little
Mhm.
bit of each exercise that I enjoy doing for each body part. Um, and then that first week back is usually about 3 days.
Yeah, yeah. So, you know, sometimes I'll pull back 2, 3 days a week, and sometimes I'll stay there for the first 6 weeks, right? But week two is always one working set. Week three, I go by feel. It's probably going to be one hard working set again per exercise. Normally 4 exercises per muscle group, somewhere around there. Um, week four, you know, now I might work in one working set and an intensifier or something like
Mhm.
that, or I might go to 2 working sets. And I'll progress that, you know, I'll modulate my volume and up until normally 4 working sets is where I tap out, you know, because 4 working sets per exercise, 4 exercises per muscle group, like we're talking about quite a bit of work. And I can't
Right.
stay there for long. Um, but I will work up to that and then I'll scale it back down and start over.
Yeah.
And then I can make the decision okay, maybe I want to go 4 days a week now. And I'll play with volume and all these things.
Yeah.
Um,
Touch and go.
exactly. One
Mhm.
thing that I think is very much worth mentioning. And I want to say this because if I don't, I'm going to forget it.
Mhm.
Take pictures every
Yep.
single day for at least the first 2 weeks because
Yep.
you can learn so much. Did we
Hmm.
miss the peak? Could I have been fuller? What happens when I add this food? Now that we're at this calories and I'm at this body weight, what's my look like? Are my glutes still in? Did I water over after this meal? How many meals did it take to water over? And put all this stuff in your cell phone notes and you have it for your next show. You can write out exactly what you ate for your rebound or what did you eat over the weekend? How did that correlate to your look? Because remember, we're bodybuilders, right?
That's what Skip
So
and I just did. We just had this
yeah,
conversation the other day. It was, hey, what foods did we utilize leading into the show last time? And I said, we used A, B, and C. He said,
yes,
perfect. We're going to use that again. I said, however, I noticed that I wasn't quite as full. And he said, okay, well, we're going to use those foods, but we're going to start them a little bit earlier.
yeah, you
And
can
so
start them. Yep.
by having that information, it's like, okay, we know what foods work. We don't want to increase the total volume right before the show because that eliminates what we're trying to do, which is
Hmm.
minimize stomach distension, keep the waist tight. But what we
Yeah.
can do is incorporate more of those foods further out to get me fuller at an earlier point and then maintain it because we know my body will hold that very well.
Yes. And that's so, because at the end of the day, as much as we are hungry after the show and we want to eat all of our favorite foods that we normally don't end up getting to anyways, we buy all this shit and we only eat
Yep.
like one or two of the things, because we're so sick and full. Um, Instead, think about how much you can learn in that
Yep.
first week, that first night after the show, the first weekend, the first Monday back in the gym. Like, just take notes on all that stuff. And that's why I'm so encouraged to get back on my plan, because I'm
Yep.
like, okay, let me see how I can fill out now. Let me see how lean I can stay. And, you know, let's see how long it takes for me to spill over, where maybe the distension is more noticeable, or the low back is starting to water over, or, maybe the glute lines are even fading a little bit. And you're like, okay, we could have loaded me harder potentially, or
Mhm.
maybe this was too much and we're spilling and we need to slow down. And now you can take that into your next show, and you this is how you learn how to peak. Is it's not always You don't always learn a lot from peaking from doing it. It's the days that follow,
Yep. Well,
because
and
there's
that's where the
just
mindset comes in. Are you
Mhm.
doing this because you just want to step on stage one time? Okay, fine. Then
Yeah,
don't
that's
listen to us.
perfectly
Go eat
fine.
the shit. Figure it out. If this is something that you're actually serious about, then
Yeah,
take the steps that we're talking about right now and implement them because what gets tracked gets measured. So the more data points that you can grab, the better you can be moving forward. And if this is something, whether you want to look to do it professionally or you just want to continue to do it, and you want to do it well, then these are the types of steps that you want to take. So again, if you're somebody who, hey, I just want to do a show, then fine, eat the shit, go ahead. I don't recommend it. Obviously, Tommy doesn't either. But
right.
if that's what you want to do, just understand the ramifications that come along with that. If you want to reverse out properly and not feel terrible, still be able to eat your foods and hold the physique that you like,
Yep.
then listen to us. And if it's something you plan to continue doing for a while, then listen to us. Listen to other coaches that are saying similar things. Um, you said you had a couple questions. Let's jump into those because I'm about due for a meal here pretty soon. And
Okay, cool. Yeah. Let me give you one analogy to
yeah,
wrap that
go for
all
it.
up in, and you concluded it very well. I just want to say this. There's two different types of people. One person will clean their car really, really well, even the inside. They'll get all the Starbucks straw wrappers out of there and all the empty cups and McDonald's bags and all that stuff. And they'll take out the dirty clothes, and they'll do it once, and then it ends up the same way a month later. And
Hmm.
then there's the person that will pick up after themselves the entire time. The car is clean. You bought the car. The car was clean when you bought it. So keep the car clean, right? Clean up after yourself, right? As the week goes on. And this relates a lot to me because I do heating and air, and guys' trucks get filthy as the season gets dirty. But when you get home, if you clean out your truck, it's clean every single day.
Yep.
So you always have a start, and it depends how you're going to take care of it moving forward. So you have this nice, lean, tight body. Just take care of it, right? If it gets a little dirty throughout the week because you wanted a meal with your wife, clean it up, right? And
Well,
then,
and picking up one or two wrappers each day is a
yes,
heck of a lot easier than picking up an entire back seat full of
yeah,
junk at
that
the end
takes
of the
it
week.
eight hours to clean, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So here's the questions, and we actually kind of answered them already.
Okay, I
E-
thought so. I was looking at I love that we're able to have shared notes because it makes it so easy to just
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
glance over and see.
it's perfect. So these are from two different clients I have. One has done one show, and the other one is getting ready for his first show.
Nice.
Um, so the first question you can see is any tips on avoiding edema post show when you are attempting to rebound. We touched on a lot of this. Um, you have to use discipline. You can't just gorge. You're going to spill. It's going to be a disaster to clean up if you take it too far. Be sensible. Use the protocol which we were just touching on. Even with the clean food, you can spill with clean food too. So you have to be careful as you add that food in. Um,
And
some
if you're
water,
worried about it, if you're somebody, just to interject really quick, because I've gone through
yeah,
both phases, if you are somebody who is saving all of these things that you want to eat post show, I can tell you right now that's a recipe for disaster. That was
yep,
me at the beginning.
yep,
If you want something, bring one or two things with you for the show. That is it.
yeah,
And when it's gone, it's gone.
yeah, yeah. If your initial thought on show day is, "What am I going to eat tonight?" Man,
Hmm.
you're already off to a bad start.
Yep.
You're already off to a bad start. Your thoughts on show day should be, my chest is going to be high, my
Yep.
glutes are going to be flexed, and my gut is going to be sucked in and tight the entire time. That's all I
Exactly.
think about the morning of show day. Keep
Yep.
your gut in, fat boy. Like, don't show
Yep.
your waist.
Stay
You know,
tight the whole time. Judges are always judging.
yep, high and tight. That's all I'm telling myself all morning long for the
Yep.
show day. High and tight. I'm gonna stay high and tight today. That's it.
Yeah,
Next one.
when my wife asked me, "What do you want for dinner?" when we got back to the hotel, I stared at her with a blank look. I said, "Honestly, I have no idea." And
Yeah,
then
that
after I got out of the shower, after I got out of the shower, I was like, a burger sounds really good.
perfect. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. Once you get that tan off you, you gotta,
Mhm.
um, how do you manage your training? We talked about that.
Yeah, we walked
You
through that completely.
Yeah, just be careful. Learn to modulate and auto regulate your volume and
Yep.
intensity. I think can still be there. First week in, I think intensity should be, let's call it a 60 to 70%,
Hmm.
as we discussed. Intensity in week two, I think it can be back to close to what you're normally at, but we got to pull back on the volume, and frequency, perhaps, right?
Yep.
And then cardio is going to get pulled too, obviously. Tips for, I like this one also. These are all good questions. Tips for managing digestion in the rebound phase. So, where do you go with this?
I think we answered this a little bit in just reversing, adding the food back in little by little, going back to your diet 2 to 3 weeks out, 3 to 4 weeks out, and then working your way back up to the original diet that you started with or close to on prep is usually going to be the best way. Getting in plenty of fluids and not just overloading yourself with a bunch of junk food. You want to throw a couple things in here or there,
Sure.
that's great. But if you
Hmm.
find that your body's not digesting certain things that you're eating as well or
Yeah.
reintroducing, then
Yeah.
keep them out for a little bit.
Yeah. It's a good time to start. If you weren't eating veggies and fruit, I'm not a huge veggie guy. I'm more a fruit guy. I like to
Mhm.
add fruits to my food. I know you do the same. Um, really start putting an emphasis on having a good amount of micronutrients in every single meal that
Yep.
you're consuming. Um, Supplementation, I think that glutamine can be helpful.
Yep.
I think
Apple
using
cider vinegar.
Yep. I think using fermented foods,
Hmm.
like kimchi, sauerkraut, things like that, can go a very long way. They have things like ginger tea, where you can start incorporating that, several times a day, and really just, not going off the rails. I mean, using that discipline. You used it all prep, and now you're just post prep, and you're still. I mean, bodybuilding is prep 24/7.
Yep.
It is. You're never. There's no off season. I don't believe in off season. I think off season is just a higher caloric prep.
Yep.
You're still always prepping. There's no. I don't believe in the term off season, and I don't think we have to get rid of the terminology or anything, because we all know what it means. We don't have to
But
be a
you're
dick
not
about
off.
it. Yeah, you're not off. You're always on. You're always on season, and it's just different phases of that
Hmm.
season. Um, did you want to touch on, gear or anything like that?
Probably not this go around. I
Yeah.
like where we're at because it stays more in the mindset. We always say, we're not going to dive too far into the X's and O's. And I think we
Yep.
did a good job of writing that line because a lot of this talks about, mental acuity and staying
Yeah.
focused.
And the approach would be the same anyways.
Yep.
You have to be smart, you have to be moderate, um, pull it back 60%, right? Something
Yep.
like that. Yeah, so that concludes. And this is not just for competitive bodybuilders. I know we're talking like it is, but even with my lifestyle guys, I diet them down to what
Hmm.
I would consider 8 weeks out from a bodybuilding show. I think a lifestyle person should absolutely be able to push themselves to an eight week outlook, right? Maybe even a 6 week outlook. Um, the first thing a lifestyle client will tell me is I do not want to compete. I said, okay, fine, but we're still going to follow the process of getting lean, building insulin sensitivity, and allowing your body to you know, we can get a rebound for lifestyle people too, and it works fabulous. I know you do something similar.
Yep.
So, um, yeah, so that's the point I wanted to make is this does apply to people that do not compete and just want to get in great shape. Because I mean, 6, 8 weeks out, that's a good look for a
Oh yeah.
healthy individual. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And we should all strive to for males, stay under 15% body fat all the time. There's
Yep.
no reason to go above 15, 16, maybe 17 at the very, very, very most. Um, no male should be above 15%. Females, you could add another 4 or 5% to that, right? Just
Yep.
because naturally they carry a little more body fat. So I just wanted to make that point. This does apply to anyone that's listening that are just lifestyle.
No, for sure. And that's a good point to make. The same rules or the same outlines align
Mhm.
or apply. So even if you are a lifestyle client and you're dieting down and you got ready for the summer, now fall's coming and okay, we want to get into a strength building phase. We're not just
Yep.
going to throw 8, 9, 1,000 calories back into the mix. We're going to slowly back out. So no, that's a
And
great point.
go ahead. Yeah, this
Oh,
is the
go ahead.
last point. I was
Yeah.
just going to say the holidays come, right? And those calories somehow work themselves in when we take some free meals for family and stuff like that. So it kind of regulates itself. You don't have to do everything. The calories are going to find their way in when you have a little bit of food with your family on the holidays and things like that. So be mindful of that. Know that's coming. Yeah, you got in great shape for summer. Now fall is coming, and Thanksgiving. All these things are coming up, and be mindful that calories are going to find their way in. So you better stay nice and tight and healthy so you can utilize those calories while enjoying time with family. So
Sorry, I got kids running around now.
you're good, dude. Yeah, we went over a little over, so
It's all
um,
good. Well, I think it was a great episode.
yeah,
Appreciate everybody for tuning in. Tommy, tell them how they can get a hold of you if they want to talk training or get some info.
yeah. tommyjohncoaching.com. You can inquire for coaching there. You can find me. You can DM me at Tommy John Coaching on Instagram. I'm putting out several training videos now. I've been staying up to date on that. So I'm putting out most of my workouts on YouTube, Tommy John 312 on YouTube. Um, Lots of videos going on. I'm not doing much commentary, or it's just watching me do my top sets pretty much. And I'm trying to edit it quickly because I don't want to spend a ton of time on it, honestly. But yeah, those are the best spots.
For
Chase
sure.
Irons Discord as well. So
Sweet. And then if you guys want to get a hold of me, next level physiques, nxtlevel-training.com. You can email me at Devon at nxt-level, or excuse me, nxtlevel-training.com. Instagram and YouTube is dgrow39, and then Facebook's Devon Grogan. So that does it for another episode of Beyond the Bar. I'm your host, Devon Grogans, here with Tommy John. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the episode with a friend if you find it valuable and you think you know somebody that would enjoy it too. Share it out. So we thank you guys for watching, and we will catch you next time. Oh, hold on, let me